to another episode of Lucas Live. I think this is our second or third Lucas Live in the morning. Thank you guys for being here. If you're watching this by replay, stay tuned. It's not too late. We came on early in the morning. Maybe you weren't quite up yet. Maybe we're like wiping the sleep out of your eyes and stuff. Do I have sleep in my eyes while I'm saying that? I should make sure, because it's early for me too. I mean, I've been up since like 4:45, 4:50. I went to the gym at 5, which is my normal routine. But now I have to be awake and ready for a morning show. So I have this delicious little concoction here. It's like post-workout and like a scoop of like veggie powder and something else. Tastes pretty good. I'm not selling this stuff though, you know what I mean? But it's pretty good, and it has a little bit of caffeine in it, so that's always cool. So it helps wake me up and get me going, and it's great to help me recover from my workout, so that's also awesome as well. So I'm excited to be here with you guys as you guys wake up and come in. As always, we ask you guys to share this broadcast because you have a platform, you have a network of your own. You may not be called NBC or CBS or Fox or VH1, BET, MTV, but you have a network. You have people who are watching you. So whether you're on Facebook, LinkedIn, Periscope, or YouTube, you can share this broadcast with other people so that they can see it on your page. And as they're waking up and wiping the sleep out of their eyes, they're like, wow, Lucas Live is on in the morning. This is better than Ricky Smiley and Tom Joyner and Russ Parr and who's that other guy? Elvis Duran and all those other people. I don't know who they all are, but you know what I mean? Like, this is live. And you're close to me, and you're close to us. And as we continue to do things, I was thinking about this morning, as we continue to add giveaways and things, I cannot wait. You guys buckle up. As this show goes and grows, we're going to be giving away lots of money, lots of things, lots of cool stuff. We're going to be helping families. We're going to be helping entrepreneurs with something to help them get their business going. Imagine if we gave away $500 to $1,000 to an entrepreneur just to help you get started. What would that do to help you get your business going? Those are the things that I dream of. Those are the things that I want to see happening daily on this show. My heart, my goal is to give. My calling is to give. My kids know that when I grow up, next week I'll be 38. But when I grow up, and I'm grown up, so I'm doing it now. My goal, my calling is to be a philanthropist. My call is to spend my life giving my time, talent, and treasure away. I know it sounds crazy. I thank God my wife signed up for this same deal, that she's willing to give her time, talent, and treasure away. Of course, we'll monetize things, and we'll have ways for you guys to give and purchase training. If you guys were on last night, you guys were there to see me talk about the LinkedIn training that I'm offering. After the show today, the LinkedIn training will return to the $100 price, which is still a crazy discount for me to teach you how to set up your LinkedIn profile and position yourself to have the job and career that you want, to live in the city and state that you want, and the climate that you want, or to build the business that you want. That's what I'm doing for people with LinkedIn. Right now, I'm using LinkedIn so that I can sit right here and keep coming live to you. I'm literally working on monetizing this show and other things that I do and trainings and things by doing it virtually, sitting right here so that I can keep sitting right here delivering this great content to you. How am I making these connections? Through LinkedIn. So if you want to find out how you can improve your LinkedIn profile or build it from scratch, I'm your guy. $75 right now. Don't be afraid to go ahead and sign up for that today. Amanda, if you could put that link up for everybody, that would be great. My wonderful producer, Miss Amanda Jean Dukes, thank you so much for being here. Again, to my beautiful wife, Miss Corinne Marie Tyndall. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a special show tomorrow morning. You don't want to miss tomorrow morning because my guest tomorrow is my wife. Corinne Marie Tyndall is going to come and talk to us about her new book, her short film, all the projects that she's working on. We shot a short film. I got to play a role in the short film. You guys don't know, but on top of all the many things I do, I also do a little acting on the side, okay? That's just another little skill God has blessed me with. You know, as long as my wife feeds me my line, I can say almost anything. You know what I mean? I didn't memorize everything I was okay with it, but she'd say, good morning, and I'd be like, good morning. And I was doing it. I'm telling you, you don't want to miss this short film. And all of her projects are amazing. They are inspirational. They are things that make you think and learn and grow. They're like my show, Education, Motivation, Liberation. They set people free. Okay, she really is about opening our minds and setting us free and educating us about something going on in society and motivating us. And I just want to shout out, last night if you guys saw the BET Awards. First of all, the BET Awards last night were also on CBS. I was like, wow. What? I was like, the BET Awards are on CBS. I was like, wow, we have come a long way. Most of the time, if you didn't watch BET, you didn't know about BET Awards. You never saw BET Awards. You didn't know BET had awards. You wasn't sure what BET stood for. BET is Black Entertainment Television. Shout out to Bob Johnson for his vision 40 years ago in creating BET. I remember watching Video Soul back in the day when BET went off at like 9 o'clock. It was only on for like a couple hours a day. I think it was on channel 28. Then it was on channel 35 where I live. And it was just a powerful thing. Remember Video Soul, Teen Summit, Rap City, Caribbean Soul, I think was one of the shows. They went through them last night and talked about the history of it. And it was just beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. If you missed it, I'm sure they'll show the replay. It'll probably be on tonight. So check out the BET Awards. And they really celebrated Black people and Black culture. They talked about the injustices going on. And they did it in such an amazing way. In a beautiful, beautiful way. So shout out to BET and all that they've done and all that they're doing. Again, everybody who jumped in, joined, and shared, thank you guys for being here. Somebody right now is watching or listening to this broadcast while you get ready. Somebody's watching this. You're about to jump in the shower. Keep playing it. Don't turn it off. Let it play. You're on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, wherever you're coming from. Stay right there. Don't go anywhere. Don't be afraid. This is a live video podcast. And while you can engage a little more if you're watching, it's okay if all you can do is listen. Somebody's driving to work right now, and you got the notification, and you pushed the button while you were at the red light, not while you were driving, and you turned it on, you connected it to the sync in your car, and you can hear my voice playing in your car right now, just like you were listening to Ricky Smiley, just like you used to listen to Tom Joyner before he went off the air. Shout out to Tom Joyner. And now you listen to Lucas Live in the morning. We're going to be bringing you guys some great morning shows. I'm so excited. And we're going to also be bringing you guys some evening shows. So we're going to be shifting to more morning shows. So if you missed the morning part, watch the replay. Make sure you don't give up and say, oh, I missed it, I can't watch it. Watch the replay throughout the day. Listen to it at work, wherever you're at. Catch up on the show so you guys can get this education, motivation, liberation. Don't feel bad if you can't watch it live. But when you can watch it live, now and in the future, it's going to give you more opportunities to win. So that's what's going to happen with the live audience. We have some cool technology we're going to be using to select winners based on participation, engagement, and some other stuff that we're working on. I am also working on being able to go live on Instagram, although Instagram does not have a way, like Instagram was not built for you to be able to go live from a computer, and it wasn't built for you to be able to restream online. Okay, but I'm working on it, all right? So I'm working on a way for us to hack into the back door of Instagram and show up on there as well. I want to be on as many channels as I can be, so it's ease of use for you. And so I show up where you are and your friends are and your family are, so you can continue to share this information and continue to share this show. I can't thank you guys enough. I'm really excited about our guest today. She is a friend of mine. She is just brilliant. When I talk to her, I'm like, I should talk to her more. She's probably busy, and I probably shouldn't just call every other day, but she's brilliant. She happens to be white. I don't know if you guys know any white people, but I do. I have white friends. And she happens to be white. And we're dealing with a lot of social injustice and Black Lives Matter and Black issues. And you guys you've been watching my show. And somebody out there, you're white. And you've been like, man, this Lucas must be like BET too or something. Like, man, there's no white people on this show. I think I had like Dan and Destiny, my one friend Dan who's white and his wife is Black. You're like, man, you must have to have like a Black wife or something, a Black husband to get on Lucas Live. That's not true. That's not true. But today, my friend Suzi Lantz is going to come on, and she's white, and we're going to talk about Black Lives Mattering, and we're going to talk about issues around race, because that's just the thing. We're not going to not talk about it because she's white. She has a perspective as well, and it's important for us to hear everybody's perspective and talk about this thing, and not just make assumptions like, well, white people don't care. That's a lie. That's not true, right? Or they don't understand. Well, maybe they don't fully understand. I don't know that I fully understand. They don't know what to do. I don't fully know what to do, but we're going to talk about it. And I'm excited that she's open for this conversation. She is a leader in church. She's a leader in business. She teaches people how to lead. She has an amazing perspective on leadership and the future of church. I'm excited to talk to her about the future of church as well, because we are at a crossroads right now with what is church going to look like in the future? From the coronavirus causing churches to go online to the church as we know it kind of breaking down as a functional system in society and in our communities. The way it once was is changing. And her and her husband and her church, they have a different perspective on what the future of church is going to look like. The very first time I talked to her ever, she like mapped it out, and her and her husband, Jason, shout out to him, in River Tree Christian Church, they like mapped out this whole thing that was like mind blowing. When I came home and told my wife, she's like, that's exactly what we've been talking about. That's exactly what I've been thinking. It is not going to look like what we thought. And if we don't get ready to get out there and start spreading the gospel in different areas instead of hoping everybody just wanders into our buildings, the church won't be there in the future. So I'm excited to have that conversation with her today. Again, if you haven't shared this broadcast yet, make sure you share this broadcast and buckle up and get ready as new people join into the discussion. Welcome them. If you're a first-time viewer, say it's my first time or say first time in the comments. We want to welcome you to the show. We're so glad to have you. David, Kales, William, thank you so much for being here. Tina, thank you so much for being here, and thank you for your support of the show. Mark Gray, so glad to have you here. I hear you. Ebony, thank you. Felicia, thank you so much. Good morning. I look forward to talking to you soon, Felicia, and having you on the show. Thank you for being here, watching us on LinkedIn. To our LinkedIn audience right here, right now, if you're a business leader today, or you're in any position, maybe in HR or a business where you're trying to figure out we need to bring in some leadership development, or we need to do some things to help develop our leaders, I have a guest on today who can greatly help you. She is just phenomenal. So buckle up, tell your boss, tell the HR manager, tell somebody to tune in now, send them the link, share it with them and say, hey, we've been talking about doing leadership development, even though we're having a pandemic. Guess what? A pandemic is no reason to stop leadership development. It's a reason to have greater leadership. You need to be developing leaders now more than ever, because what is the new normal going to look like, and who's going to lead us into the new normal? We're going to talk about it today. Janine Brent, welcome to the show, my friend. Happy belated birthday. My good friend, Angela Hardesty, so glad you're here. Betsy Spring, it's your first time. Welcome to the show. Let's show Betsy Spring some love here today. It's her first time. She's here on Facebook. We're so glad to have you. Isha. I know someone named Isha. Good morning. It's your first time. I know another Isha. You're my second Isha. You are my second favorite Isha, but you're one of my favorites. Just know that, Isha. Welcome to the show. It's her first time. Thank you for being here. Lucas Live in the morning. We've been doing this show. It's dedicated to my mom. She passed away on March 26th of this year of breast cancer in the Cleveland Clinic. And 10 days later, I hit go live. And I've been going live ever since. And this show is dedicated to Vivian Rosetta Tyndall, my beloved mom, who taught me the importance of education, motivation, and liberation. And that's what this show is about. We want to educate people. We want to motivate them to do something with what they've learned. And we want to liberate them and set them free so that they can do something with the things that they've learned so that they can make change in their personal and professional lives. So I'm so excited. I'm not going to delay it any longer. I'm going to bring on my great friend and wonderful guest, Miss Suzi Lantz. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Lucas. I need to start out every morning with you. I just feel like, man, you just talked me up. How could I have a bad day after that?
It's true.
It's great to be here. I'm so excited that you had me on and excited for this conversation.
Thank you so much, Suzi. Even before the show, ladies and gentlemen, Suzi and I were talking, and it was just Suzi, I think you claim to be an introvert. Is that right?
I am.
Okay, so first of all, and I want to say this to everybody out there because this is a lesson I learned in my life. Personality does not dictate skill set. Just because you're naturally an introvert does not mean you don't have social skills or people skills or the ability to talk, teach, educate, motivate, whatever it is. Suzi, you are just such a... to me, you energize me every time I talk to you, and then you're like, oh, by the way, I'm an introvert. I'm like, how? Like, it doesn't seem like it. It doesn't seem like it. But let's start a little bit. For those that don't know you, tell them a little bit about yourself and as a person personally, and then what you do in church and in business.
Sure. So personally, I'm a wife and mother of two teenagers. Joshua Lantz is 13, and he tries my patience every day, but he is incredible. He's definitely developing as a leader. And my daughter, Karis, just hit the road, 15 and a half, going to be a sophomore. So those are probably the two most important leaders that I am training right now.
Okay, I love it.
And they're incredible. My husband, Jason, is pastor, like you mentioned, at River Tree Christian Church. And so I'm a pastor's wife. It's my unofficial role, but it definitely has been a blessing, has taught me a ton about leadership.
Okay.
It's the only role you're not intentionally hired for, but you definitely end up doing a lot with. And if there's any other pastors' wives out there, they could probably relate. But by trade, I'm actually a leadership consultant. My background's in education and coaching, and several years ago, I got connected to an incredible organization called Giant Worldwide. Now we're referred to as just Giant. And our whole bent, our whole aim and mission is to help every leader we work with become the healthiest version of themselves, and then know how to multiply. Know how to multiply that leadership health, know how to multiply their skill set, and really grow to be leaders worth following. We've all had experiences in our life with leaders we've had to follow.
And didn't love it.
But what a difference it makes when you actually get the privilege to want to follow the leader that is guiding you. And so that's really what I spend my days doing, working with individuals, teams, organizations, and really looking at culture.
Yeah.
We talked about, and I know it's in the promos, but toxic culture is not where you want to be.
Right.
But how do we change that? How do we actually assess what is causing the toxicity and actually begin to be proactive to right that and really create an atmosphere where everybody can thrive and feel empowered to bring their best.
Right.
And so, yeah, that's a little bit about me. It's what I do. It's what I'm passionate about. And I just love, when I get to do what I do, I get to connect with people like you, Lucas, and
awesome.
It's been the greatest thing. So I am an introvert. But I love people.
Secretly introverted. Okay, but you love people.
And introversion and extroversion, it's just really where we get our energy from.
Absolutely.
So at the end of a long day, I just need to be alone and recharge, whether it's going out for a long run by myself or sitting in a corner with a book, just to recharge my batteries. I need that alone time, whereas an extrovert would just want to be around people or have loud music playing or just something that's a little more external to bring that around. And but I do, I really have loved getting to do what I do because I'm passionate about it. It connects me to great people, and I get to be part of just helping their lives become better.
I love it. And I love the call out about introversion being a charging mechanism, right? Introversion is not, I don't like people.
Sure. No, I was teaching a workshop one time, and I said, okay, we talked about the preference pairs and said, who's extroverted, who's introverted? And the introverts raised their hands, and I actually had a guy shout out and be like, I can't believe you're willing to admit that.
You hate people.
It was awful.
Right.
But I think the misconception is that introverts don't like people.
Right.
Like they're hermits alone in the woods. It's actually not true. And I think it's a really important thing that we need to identify because, if I've poured myself out and had people saturated weeks and I haven't taken the time to be alone, to recharge, I'm going to be a shell of a person.
Yep.
I'm not going to be able to bring my best. And so actually understanding that about who I am and what it takes to refuel and having permission to do that, it has changed the game for me.
That is so cool. Now, ladies and gentlemen, Suzi is going to break down some personality types today as well. Okay. So if you've been wondering why you're different than everybody else or what's different about you, I'm going to have her break some things down. So don't turn away. Stay tuned. Again, if you got to get in your car because you have to drive to work, turn it on. If you have a Zoom meeting at work, turn them down, turn us up. No, just kidding. But turn it back on later. But you want to hear this conversation today about personality types because it's impacting you in your personal relationships and your professional relationships. If you don't know your voice, and she's going to talk to us about the 5 voices, it's like the 5 love languages. It's like when you don't know you and you don't know what others might be, you have conflict because you just don't understand why people don't understand where you're coming from. Okay, so I'd love for us to talk about that. But before I talk about that, I have to ask you a question. My friend Hubert Carpenter is on here today. He's a pastor. He's just the best friend I've ever had, other than my wife. I always tell my wife she's my best friend. She's like, no, I'm not. He's your best friend. I mean, she's my best friend, like my best friend. but he's like the best friend, a best friend. Okay, so anyway, we've been friends since fifth grade. He's a pastor. He's a wonderful, wonderful man of God. And he said, "Good morning, Luke," speaking to me, and First Lady. Now this, have you? So okay, now,
yeah.
what's up with that, right? In the black church, the pastor's wife is the first lady, and we don't even call her anything else except First Lady or First Lady Verlinda at my church, or First Lady Tierra, or First Lady at his, for him. What's up with that, real quick, just to help us, since we're going to talk about race and culture? Is First Lady a black church thing, or what?
Well, I realized that when we were planting a church in Canton that was a little more multicultural. That
in the hood? No, it was in the inner city?
It
was in the inner city.
In black churches that I haven't been privileged with in the white churches. They don't give me that credit.
Kind of honor.
That I guess. And so I love that. I think there is, when you're in ministry, it's so much of a partnership, and I love that. But honestly, I don't have the background or where even that came from or why it developed.
Nor do we.
I would love to know myself.
If anybody knows, please let us know in the comments.
Type it in the comments.
Somebody Google
Maybe
that.
Your best friend knows.
I know, right? Somebody, I don't know. We just say stuff. It's like culture. It's like, hey, First Lady, you go to another church and like, that's the pastor's wife, and you don't even ask her name. You're like, First Lady, hello, First Lady, and then when you say it to other people, they're like, you had the president's wife at your church? You're like, no, what are you talking about? No, they didn't come. It was my First Lady, okay? I think Betsy Springs it. I think it's a Southern church thing. Hubert Carpenter.
Shout out to Betsy. Hey, Betsy. Hey. She is an amazing woman. You should have her on your show.
Awesome.
Just for the record. Betsy. The woman knows way more than I do. She's one of my favorites.
Awesome. Betsy, glad to have you. Excited to meet you. I look forward to it. Let's connect. All right, Betsy. All right. And she said it's not just black churches. All right, awesome. Hubert Carpenter, Pastor Carpenter said, we don't know either. We don't know. It's just a thing we do. All right, so a couple things. Okay, so, and ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned because Suzi, who is white, you see, did you notice? You guys noticed? And I'm black. Did you guys notice that? Your camera's working good? We're going to talk about race in a second, which is really cool because we've had this discussion about race and it's been us, black people, and we're talking about race and injustice and da-da-da-da. But we don't often have this conversation with others. And then we kind of look at it like, well, it's their job to try to have this conversation with us and blah, blah, blah. But on Lucas Live, we bring people to you so we can get educated, motivated, liberated, and hear different perspectives so we can talk about these things. So buckle up. I'm excited for us to talk about that. But before we go there, Suzi, let's talk a little bit about toxic leadership. We promised that we would talk about that. What is toxic leadership? What does that look like? And what are some of the implications of having a toxic leader in your business, your church, your home? What's up with that?
Well, the metaphor we use in Giant is that culture is kind of like a greenhouse. So think about a greenhouse. If you've ever visited in the north, and we have to have greenhouses if we're going to grow anything in the winter because we don't get any sunshine.
Right. So sad.
If you walk into a greenhouse, if there were poisonous gases, what would you see? What would the evidence be? Nothing would be alive. Things would be dying left and right. You wouldn't see the fruit, the health. And so our culture, whether it's in your home, whether it's in your church, whether it's in your organization, the culture, which really is the behavior and the attitudes of the people that make up any environment. So your home culture, your church culture, your work culture, if there are toxic people, and what I would say the quickest way to identify a toxic person is, are they for themselves or are they for others?
Interesting.
A lot of us come to leadership accidentally. We're not intentional about knowing ourselves to lead ourselves.
Right.
And that's why the 5 Voices, which we'll talk about in a little bit, has become such an incredible tool for people. Because when you can identify, even me, there's strengths I bring to the table. But then there are things that are like broccoli in my teeth that I might not identify about, my own weaknesses where I'm undermining myself, where I'm losing credibility left and right, but everybody else around me knows it. And they're like, oh, that's just Suzi. Oh,
She's always like that.
I'm self-aware enough to look at myself in the mirror and identify those things in my own personality and my own leadership when I'm under stress and pressure that are going to undermine me, that are going to make it a little more toxic for the people that I'm leading,
Right.
the culture is going to grow under me. Leaders define culture.
Mm.
If you don't like your
Wow.
current reality and you're in a leadership role, whether it's your home, whether it's your church, whether it's your organization, whether it's your own show, Lucas,
Oh, very fair.
leaders define reality and they define the culture. And so you have to look in the mirror first and
Yes.
stop blaming everybody. But often, we're for ourselves.
Yeah.
We all have this instinct to be self-preserving.
Mm.
And if we don't identify that and recognize, hey, I got to get over myself.
Yeah.
I've got to get over myself. When we operate in self-preservation, it's because, we're not asking ourselves 3 honest questions. The first is, what am I trying to hide?
Mm.
Maybe I'm not as smart as you've made me out to be on the show.
Now I'm a little nervous.
So, a self-preserving tendency would be me trying to drop in all kinds of big words and using my thesaurus to be like, well, Lucas said I was brilliant, so I got to prove myself now. You know what? I'm not that smart. I do have some tools to help people with,
Right.
but I don't have to hide that I don't know everything.
Right.
We're going to talk about race. We're going to go there. I'm a white woman.
I keep pointing that out, ladies and gentlemen. Right.
But what do I have to hide? There's a lot I have to learn. But
Sure.
if I'm going to be self-preserving, we're not going to be able to have that conversation.
Right.
So what are you trying to hide? What am I afraid of losing?
Mm.
That's a self-preserving question.
Wow.
If you're afraid of losing something, whether it's your promotion, your credibility, your position, you're going to have crazy self-preserving tendencies and actions that are going to undermine your credibility.
Wow.
And often, when we try to keep something that we're afraid of losing, we lose it anyway. We lose it anyway. And then the last is, what am I trying to prove and to whom?
Wow.
If you're trying to prove yourself, if there's this gaping hole where you don't feel like you're enough, that, you have something to prove, that people don't believe in you, you're going to act in a way that is not going to make you a leader worth following.
Wow.
It's not going to create a healthy culture around you, because at the root of it, you're for yourself.
Right.
And you're not for others. And so honestly, there's so much we could talk about when it comes to that toxic leadership culture. But genuinely, when I look at a culture that's healthy and when I look at a culture that's unhealthy, immediately I go to those leaders and I assess, are they for themselves? Actually for others? Do they actually see the value of every person on their team? And are they working to bring that out, to be liberators, to really create an empowering culture where every voice can be heard and every person can really thrive? That's really the difference. I mean, in a nutshell.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. I think a lot of leaders, like you said, they stumble into leadership, whether it is, I always say great widget makers aren't always great leaders of other widget makers, right?
True.
Like I was really good at doing this thing. And I got into leadership at a very young age. I was working with kids and families. I was working with school agers at McKinley Early Childhood Center in inner city Canton. I started when I was 16. And it was a job, and I loved kids, although I was one. And it was a great job, and it helped me bring a little more, for my family and whatnot. And I did well at it. And then I got an opportunity to be the night supervisor, and I had staff under me, and I was only 18. And then at 23, I was the administrator of 40 people. I was the 40 employees and hundreds of kids and families and issues and licensing, and there's this fear of I'm not adequate enough. I don't have what it takes. And the reality was I didn't. I didn't have it all. I didn't have all the tools in my toolkit. I didn't know how to navigate every problem. I didn't know how to deal with every situation. And I had to learn as I went along, but I was for the people. And I always said, I said to the staff, I said, you're more important than I am. I don't have a position of leadership unless I have people to lead. So without you doing your job, I have no job. There is no administration without a staff and people to serve. So me being the administrator, although that sounds fancy, I'm nothing. It's like you can't be a parent without children. You can't be a leader without followers. You can't be a pastor without a flock. You can't, right? You need those people.
Right.
And if you get the thing turned up, if you get the thing wrong, because we look at businesses as a hierarchy, as in the top person, we almost think that top person is the most important person. But the reality is that top person has nothing without the people that make the foundation underneath them. So help us understand a little bit about that feeling of inadequacy, often called like the imposter syndrome, right? Like,
Sure.
I'm not good enough to lead. Let's talk a little bit about that. How do we deal with feelings of inadequacy?
Right. Well, I think the first step is to look in the mirror and identify what is it. Don't leave it as like an ambiguous thing where you feel like, I don't know if I can do this. What about the role or what about the job makes you feel insecure? What is it? Be honest with yourself. Like I said, we use the metaphor. We all have broccoli in our teeth.
Right. I love that.
You know, it's so much less embarrassing if you look like, let's say I had a, spinach frittata for breakfast, whatever.
Right.
And it's so much less embarrassing if I do a quick check in the mirror and I'm like, oh my gosh, I got broccoli in my teeth.
Right.
Let's get it out before I come on this live show to millions of your viewers.
Right.
And you're like,
millions. I love it.
We're like 20 minutes in, but I just got to stop you right here.
Right.
You got this big green hunk of stuff hanging out. It's really distracting.
Right.
To go take care of that.
Right.
I mean, if you're willing to look in the mirror first and identify what is it that I need to grow in, and actually begin to take steps to grow that skill set, to actually ask for help. It's so much less daunting. That fear of inadequacy, the fear of not being enough is so much, you mentioned none of us are going to have every aspect, like 100% with the roles that we have to play, particularly in leadership.
Right.
We all have our own job, our own performance, but then when you have to lead a team, that's a whole different skill set.
Yeah.
And you have to grow in your ability to lead. And that's where knowing yourself to lead yourself and having some language around that, it's where tools like the 5 voices, and there's a lot of different personality assessments. You've got DISC, strengths finders, but having something to say, this is who I am and this is where I need to grow. It makes all the difference because then instead of those inadequacies on those bad days being things that will take you out and keep you from being a leader that leads with confidence.
Wow.
In Giant, we talk about the best leaders worth following have something we call humble swagger.
I like that.
Humble, but they're confident.
Ooh, I like that.
Because we use the analogy of leadership is a lot like being a Sherpa on a mountain. So the Sherpas are the people group that actually, they were born at 14,000 foot elevation. They're very acclimatized to that thin air.
Right.
And so they make really great guides for leading people up the mountain. If you want to be a leader worth following that's actually looking at your team and leading them, well, you've got to be competent.
Right.
Nobody wants to follow a Sherpa up the mountain who's like, I don't know, feel a little bit,
It's
maybe
risky.
we can do this.
Right.
We're going up to the death zone. Let's give it a whirl. I'm not
See what
really,
happens.
I'm not really the best person for the job, but they gave it to me anyway, so I guess I'll lead you. No, we don't want to follow a leader like that. We want somebody who says, I've done this before. I've been to the top of the mountain. I have the skills needed. I'm not perfect, but I'm going to get you to the top. And yet I have the humility to learn and recognize that I'm still growing as a person. And I think when we can do that and have that posture, where we don't have anything to hide, we are fully aware that, hey, I'm a new leader. I've got to grow in this.
Yes.
My boss recognized something in me, so he put me in charge of this, 10-person team. I feel like I've got a lot to learn. Well, good. Admit it. And then learn. There's a lot of grace for leaders who are willing to be humble enough to say,
Very true.
What? I don't know the answer to this question you have, but I'll figure it out. I'm going to ask the right people, and I will learn. People will give you so much grace, as opposed to if you're a leader who's like pretending to be a know-it-all and just, barking out orders or being demanding or pretending like you know everything and really don't. That's where you lose credibility.
I love that. I love that. Anybody, I love it. We have people typing humble swagger in the comments. Some more people type that in the comments. Humble swagger. I never heard of such a thing in my life. It is now a Lucas Live phrase. I'll be saying it every day like I made it up. Okay.
Jeremy Kubicek, the founder of our company, I think it originated with him. He or Mike Opedal. I'll get to the root of that.
All right, let us know.
Yeah, go ahead and claim it.
We'll cite our source. I'll cite my source in the citation page. My bibliography, but they won't know. But humble swagger is important. And one of the things I love talking about is personal and professional. I think there's something to that, too. I'm going to have to think about that as well when it comes to relationships, because there's something about people being confident in themselves, yet having a level of humility. Like, yes, I know I bring something to the relationship, and I'm confident that I'm a good man or woman or husband or wife or father or mother, but I have a humility that says, I don't know what all it takes to be a father. Like, every day I'm like, rolling the dice. Like, I hope this thing works. I hope I'm not going too hard. I hope I'm not going too soft. And we're learning and we're growing. So I love, love, love the term humble swagger. Everybody, thank you guys so much. I see our friend Marcus McFolling on here today.
Hey, Marcus.
Marcus is the reason, ladies and gentlemen, that Suzi and I met. Quick story. Marcus and I met at a barbershop, and I had heard his name on, I think the date was October 7th, I forget. But it was the day, it was just 2019. I was laid off from my job, and it was a rough day for me. But I was meeting with some great people, Lester Sanders, Rob Thompson, Steve Beatty, Corey Miner-Smith. We were getting together to discuss doing some work together, and we were having this meeting at a library. And I just got laid off from my job, but I wanted to honor this meeting, and I went there and like, everybody. And I'm thinking, you guys just don't know. I don't know what's next for me, and I lost my job today, and this sucks. But we were talking, and I think it was Corey Miner-Smith that said, have you guys heard of Marcus McFolling? And a couple people said yes, and I was like, no, I don't know. Who is Marcus McFolling? I don't know who that guy is. Why haven't I heard of him? And they're like, he's doing great stuff. I'm like, I usually know who's doing great stuff. I try to pay attention. And so I started looking him up, and I followed him on everything, and I saw him just his heart and his passion and his just, I don't know that anybody else oozes humble swagger. He oozes love. He oozes the love of Christ. Like, he just, it's like coming out of him every time he opens his mouth. So I saw him at the barbershop. Shout out to Nate Chester at Chester's Mop Shop. Saw him there. Gotta love Nate Chester. He'll be on the show soon. Shout out to Nate.
That's good.
He will be on. So I saw.
He's got humble swagger.
He does.
If anybody does.
If anybody, yes.
Nate Chester, love that guy.
Yes, Nate is the man. And I saw Marcus, and I walked up to him like, "Hey, man, I just heard about you." Blah blah blah. We sat and talked for at least an hour. We walked out in the parking lot, talked more, and then he said, "Why don't you meet me at the Leadership Center the next day," or something like that.
Yeah.
So I went there the next day, and he forgot that he was out of town that day. So details, minor details. You know, it's nothing. So he forgot he was going to be out of town. So I walked up, and your husband, Jason, met me at the door. He was walking in as well, and he said, you know, what were you doing? I was like, you know, I mean, he was really super nice. He was like, you trying to come in? I'm like, yeah, I think so. And I'm supposed to meet Marcus here. And you guys don't pay attention to the fact I'm moving my screen thing around right here live on the show. I messed it up. No big deal. All right. And I said, he wasn't there, but Jason was so nice. And Jason spent an hour with me, which was madness. I was like, you're like this senior pastor, leader of River Tree, bishop-ish in the black church. That's what we would call it. Her husband, Jason, they're like the bishops of River Tree Christian Church to my black people out here. You'd be like, Bishop so-and-so. That's what they kind of are. I don't know if y'all call it that, but anyway. And that's cool. That's normal.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's how I met Suzi. So I met Jason. We talked forever. And then he was like, you do leadership development. You got to meet my wife, Suzi. I think 2 days later, I came and met you guys. And my life has never been the same. You guys are amazing, amazing people. Again, shout out to Marcus McFolling for introducing us. Then he and I met there the next week. And because of you all, my life has not been the same. Because I feel a level of liberty in Christ. A level of liberty. Now, Suzi, talk to us a little bit about the future of church. And when I say I feel liberty in Christ, it's because you were some of the first people to talk to me about the fact that the church of the future is not going to look like the church right now. And that we have to be activated, and we have to activate people to get out there and do something different. Talk to the audience today about what does that look like? What do you see as the future of church? And what is our job to empower people in all areas?
Right. Well, I think, you know, you look out at the landscape of life in general. We're not in the Industrial Revolution anymore. We are in the digital age.
Yes.
And it is different.
Yes.
And leaders have got to understand that it's not the same as it was 30 years ago, 20 years ago. Like, we have got to be nimble. We've
Yes.
got to be innovative, and we've got to understand what's relevant to people. The
Right.
gospel will always have power. Like, our hearts were made. I'm horrible at references. My husband can quote them off. He has a great memory, but
Uh-huh.
God has set eternity in our hearts.
Yes.
And so every person that is on this globe has a deep desire to know God, to connect, to understand what we're here for. And the gospel is the answer. But there's a huge barrier in place.
Yes.
The church is the hope of the world. It was Jesus's, definite plan when he rose and, he gave us the gift of the Holy Spirit.
Yes.
He had intention for us to carry the good news that there could be reconciliation
Yes.
with God who made us and loved us. And yet the church, if we do not innovate, if we are so stuck in our ways, not in, the message doesn't change. Like, we are not changing the message of the gospel. The
Right.
Bible is the truth. But the delivery vehicles, the method and the modes of how we engage with people and culture has got to change.
Yes.
And I think it falls on each leader to understand the people that God has sent them to. And understand, so a local church has got to wrestle with, what is good news for this community? Beyond just the great news of the gospel, what do they need? Like, what is unique and what are the people needing? And meet them there,
Yes.
and then
Yes.
open the door for the great news of the gospel and relationship with our Creator. And I think that's where we go wrong when we, and it's honestly, it's helped me a lot to understand personality types and statistics, because really 73% of the population with our voices are very present oriented. They're very day to day. And those voices, in a good way, they're not going to just leap and jump and try new things. They're a little more risk averse. And it's probably good because we can't do new things every day.
Right.
Ideas need to be vetted. We need to ask good questions and be responsible with resources and time and fun, budgets and everything.
Sure.
But, that 73% of the population, if they're not willing to make adjustments and changes and adapt, and actually not say, like you had mentioned, just come to us and you'll be able to be part of the church. But the church needs to be full of missionaries who actually go to the people that God is sending them to. And so when we come together and we gather, it's to be encouraged, it's to be equipped, and then to be sent out wherever we might find ourselves, whether it's at our workplaces, whether it's in our neighborhoods, in our homes. God has a person for each of us to connect with and to bring, freedom and liberty to. And I think we put a lot of weight on it. All has to happen on Sunday morning in a church service. Yeah. And COVID-19, it has shown us that cannot be the
basic operating assumption. Right.
Because in one fell swoop, one declaration from our governor, and that freedom's not there.
Right.
It doesn't mean the church can't still function.
Right.
But the church has got to leave the building. And the church has got to be on mission. And every believer, every church leader has to grapple with what does that mean for us? Are we actually, and I think a big question that Jason and I asked ourselves early on in ministry is, if our ministry wasn't here, if our church was not part of the city, would it make a difference? Would anyone care?
Wow.
Besides the people that come and, would anyone notice? Besides the people that attend. Yeah. And that is a humbling concept. It's a humbling question that I think we have to ask ourselves.
And every church every church leader, I think everybody listening to this now or in the future, would the community notice? Or would only your people notice and be like, oh man, it's sad we can't go to that building and do that church thing that we do that serves us, right? That's good. It makes me feel good. My kids, they kind of like it. My teenagers, they'd rather be asleep. It's kind of a thing that we do. It's our routine. Yeah. It's our religion. And in that religion, we have some great relationships, hopefully with God first, Christ, and then with each other. But does the community notice, or is it like you could disappear and the only thing they would notice is that sign is down, right? As opposed to they're no longer making an impact on our lives, our community, our city, our streets, our lives are different. People who may not be regular attendees, lives wouldn't be the same. I love that. And I think that is such a profound question that I think all church leaders at every level, not just pastors too, because I think we always put church leadership on the pastors, like they're the only ones who should be thinking about the impact of the church. Like they can't do it alone. They can't do it alone.
Absolutely.
Now, Suzi, I'd love to. I promised this that we would talk a little bit about race, and I'm reading some great books. I don't have them all in front of me. I have this book here called "The Color of Law." It is a forgotten history of how our government segregated America. I have a great book called "White Fragility" that I don't have within reach. That I started the audiobook today, but I also have the physical copy. "White Fragility," crazy book. You and I talked about it a little bit this morning.
Yeah.
What's up? You are our first singular white guest, other than my man Dan Harsh, who was sitting next to his black wife, right? I want to hear from you. What are your thoughts on what's going on in our country today, and what do you think your role is in helping change things, or do you think things are okay?
Yeah. Well, thank you, first of all, for having me on. I told you I feel privileged.
Yes.
No pun intended.
Right. Right. She feels privileged to be on Lucas Live, ladies and gentlemen. Right.
But what is going on in our world today? A lot of people are shocked or horrified or, oh, how is this happening? What's going on? I think if you really are somebody who connects the dots and has your eyes open, it's not a surprise. You cannot ignore history. You cannot ignore the cries of people who have been oppressed, who haven't been given a fair shake. You can't ignore the fact that systematic racism exists in our country and just think, oh, but, we said we're sorry and that it's all good now. So why is everyone upset? This isn't, and I think we as humans, and a lot of us, we don't like conflict.
Right.
There's a lot of people who, any kind of conflict, whether it's a fight with your spouse or, an argument with a coworker, it just makes us uncomfortable.
Right.
And so we have a fight or flight mentality.
Mm-hmm.
Some people are like, let's go, let's duke it out.
Right.
Let's
do this
go
today. There. Right.
And then there's other responses where it's just like, I don't like this, makes me feel uncomfortable, so I'm just going to go hide and just stay neutral.
Yeah.
Well, I think we're at a place in our history where it's no longer an option to stay neutral.
Wow.
It's not.
Yes.
Whether you're black, whether you're white, whether you're Hispanic, whether you're Asian, it is no longer an option to be an informed person and just stay neutral.
Yes.
It's not possible. And so I think we have an incredible opportunity. And I honestly think, one of my mantras in life is, it's not always what's right or wrong, it's what is.
Wow.
There is definitely right, there's definitely wrong.
Right.
But you have to be willing to look at what is and start there.
Yes.
Start there and say, how can I be proactive? How can I be solutions oriented with reality, with what is my reality right now and where I need to go and grow? And so, to answer your question, what can I do as a white woman living in this day and age?
Yes.
I think it's first of all, really important that we own the fact that there is a problem.
Yes.
That it's important for us to read, to research, to understand. I remember when I was a senior, and I told you a little bit of my history. I grew up, my dad is an attorney. We grew up in a pretty, affluent, predominantly white town, but I went to preschool, elementary school in the city. Our church was in the city, and it was just very diverse. But then transferring into an all-white school in middle school and high school was kind of like culture shock for me. And I was like, oh my goodness. And it always bothered me. I wasn't able to have a lot of conversations intelligently about that.
Right.
But my senior year of high school, we had a government class, and it was taught by a local attorney, and he taught it like a college level class. We all had to do, a thesis paper and research, and I chose to look at Brown versus Board of Education.
Wow.
But why our schools were still segregated.
Wow.
Because, when I learned about that law in 1954 that was passed, and I graduated in 96, so I'm older than you.
A little bit, just a couple years.
38.
Right. Yep.
But I'm like, wait a second. It's unconstitutional for schools to be segregated, but looking around.
Still are. Right.
and I only see white people.
Right.
So how is this possible? So I spent that year researching and figuring out what happened. And I learned about this little, action called redlining, and, how school districts can just change boundary lines. And all of a sudden, we racially isolate people.
Yep.
And anyway, as you begin to understand that it's not just choice or preference that has caused so much disparity and inequality and lack of opportunity, and the cycle that just continues to repeat itself, when you actually begin to understand why, then you can become a lot more proactive and solutions oriented, and recognize. And I think for each person, similar to like we said with the church, everybody has to ask themselves, difference would it make if I was here? Not like, what is my responsibility? What platform do I have? What education, what knowledge, what connections do I have that I can use to actually make a difference when it comes to this conversation, when it comes to this issue? And so I've been grappling with that a lot. I've been doing a lot of reading. And I will tell you, like, I love leadership books. I love nonfiction, but I'm an English major by trade, and I love fiction.
Yes.
And here's the weirdo in me. When I was, figuring out who are my favorite authors, in college, I read every author under the sun. It was like my major.
Right.
But two stood out. Jane Austen, who is probably as white as you could get, Victorian author who writes about the class struggle in Britain, and Toni Morrison.
Interesting.
One of the most influential people in my life.
Wow.
And grappling with those two, that I loved both of their writing. I loved both of their ideas and the worldview that each of them were like kind of introducing me to. And I had to walk a mile in both shoes and their characters and understand. And I think, we need to be able to do that, to look at the spectrum of experience and then learn.
Absolutely.
So that's part of it. I think, just really asking ourselves individually the questions. Am I part of the solution? Am I doing something proactive? So as a leadership consultant, it's something that I've begun to really take seriously. I've been talking a lot to our HQ team about developing platforms and pathways on our current platform, which is Giant TV, that really will educate people, that will, create a place for voices to speak and to empower, but then also to develop some trainings, that actually start this conversation and connect to people and put the right voices in the right place where we can all learn and grow, so that each person has a voice at the table, and we can begin to dismantle some of the systemic racism that exists within our culture, not turn a blind eye, not pretend that it's not there, but actually educate ourselves and begin to do something about it.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. I think it is, it says a lot, because I think we sometimes get caught up in thinking again that it is only like black people were fighting for black rights and Black Lives Matter, and all white people, none of them care, and none of them. That's never been true. Like abolitionists and those that fought in the Civil War, like that, there was without white people realizing that this is a humanitarian issue, that Christians really realizing that race is not a thing. We are children under God. Whether we're one nation under God is yet to be determined. I don't know that we've lived that out yet, but God is not American, right? Jesus was not an American. Jesus would not wrap himself in an American flag and say, this is my nation. He was radical because he kept talking to people who thought they had a kingdom about his kingdom. And they were like, who's this dude? King of the Jews? And he got a kingdom? And they even mocked him on the cross. Like, where are your soldiers? You're a king. You're king. Why don't you do something about it? And he continued to challenge people and said, if this was my kingdom, I'd be tearing this place up. But I'm going to go ahead and roll with this plan right now. And we have to recognize that Jesus died for all of us. He didn't die for some of us. He died for all of us. And he did not say that one race, which he didn't say a race, but one color or one group of people or another are less than the other group. And I think it's so important, and I thank you, because inaction is a vote too, right? That hiding, you talked about that desire to hide. Well, that's a vote to say, I'm not going to do anything about it. When I think about women's rights and women not being paid fairly, well, I need, as a man, I believe I need to add my voice to that conversation and say, it's true and it's ridiculous. The most phenomenal, some of the most phenomenal people I've known in business and in leadership have been women. We have to stop talking about women being too emotional and all this nonsense. We all have to fight for other things that maybe don't directly impact us, but they do directly impact us in that, injustice for some is injustice for all, and we have to fight to do something about it. So thank you so much for that. And before we go, I want us to take some time. Can you tell us a little bit more about you and your business? If you could touch on the 5 voices, but somebody out there is thinking, this is a wonderful woman. I'd love to connect with her, maybe from the church aspect, maybe from the business aspect. Somebody out there on LinkedIn is tuned in and they just tapped their boss to listen to this. Can you tell them a little bit about how they could connect with you, work with you, and what you bring to the table?
Absolutely. Well, the people I love to work with most are proactive leaders who, all of us need leadership help when we're in times of crisis and we don't know what to do. But if that's not you and you're sitting here and you're like, what do I need to develop my people for? We're doing great. Even through COVID, we hit our bottom line. Everything's going well. That is the best time to begin to develop your people, to work with a consultant, to actually look at your culture and see if you're poised to grow and actually healthy enough to build, to expand, to continue, or if there are things that are going to undermine you. What I love about Giant is our company continues to innovate. And so we have a platform now because, the digital age is here, and it is so important that, yes, we do face-to-face trainings and, I come to locations and work with teams. But more often than not, we have a platform that gives you access to so many incredible resources, content, so that, you can learn on your own. If you've got a team of 10 and they work remotely, you're like, I can't spend 4 hours a week bringing them in for leadership development. Well, as a leader, if you can give them access to some content that they're going to learn on their own in their own time and then bring them together, it's going to be so much more potent, powerful. And so, really what I bring to the table is a high-tech component through Giant, but also high-touch. And so I individualize and make sure that whatever consulting and coaching I bring is as a result of really assessing a leader's pain point. What is going on? What is it that is really breaking down the culture or, not allowing this team to move forward in a healthy way that's going to get them to their goals and their bottom line. So, I love working with proactive leaders. We can work with leaders in crisis too. So if that's you and you're just like, we're going under, there are ways to right the ship. And I love to jump in those scenarios as well. But when I get to work with those leaders who are proactive, who are looking in the mirror themselves and learning about their own tendencies and willing to take control of their own life so that they can be a leader worth following for the rest of their organization, for their family, it's one of my greatest things. We do a lot with communication. And so healthy team communication is really the starting place. If you want to build to capacity and expand, you got to have great communication with your team. That leads to great relationships and trust so that you can all be aligned on the same page and then execute. When everybody in an organization knows what their role is, why they're valuable, and what they do, why it matters to the bigger picture, well, that's a team that's ready to grow. There's no confusion. And so, that's really what I work with teams to produce. That's, and sometimes, it's a process, but I really try to assess from the leader's standpoint, what do you need? What do you want? And let's work within that parameter. So, I'm sure you'll put my email out there. If leaders want to connect with me, they can find me on LinkedIn. There's so many, for any budget or any size organization or even an individual. I offer leader intensives. If you need a change, a preferred future, there's a deep dive into your life mapping and personality and goals and values that we can do and take some time set aside if you just want to be a next level leader. It's like, I don't want to change anything. I love the company organization I'm with. We can do that as well. It's one of my favorite things to do, to really have a deep dive with a leader and help them become the healthiest version of themselves for their team. But yeah, I would
Love it.
love to connect with your audience. If there's anyone out there that needs help with themselves, their team, their organization, please connect with me.
Love it,
Love
love
it.
it, love it. And let's tell them your email one time. It's Suzi.Lantz.
Yep, LANTZ at giantworldwide.com.
At giantworldwide.com. There it is, ladies and gentlemen, on the screen. Suzi.Lantz at giantworldwide.com. If you're interested in connecting with her, shoot her an email. Take a screenshot of that right now on your phone or on your computer. Write it down. Do something right now so you have her information. Reach out to her, your organization, your business, your church, whatever it may be. And she has some great resources through the Giant TV network. Maybe it's you need something as a resource for your teams to have access to, a platform, a database of training. So many companies are like, we're trying to build this intranet, we're trying to build this platform, we're trying to build our own LMS and have education for our staff and our leaders, and it's a daunting task. Well, Suzi has it already ready for you, already. It's already there for you, and she can work with you to help you guys get comfortable and familiar and do some team things to strengthen your team so that when they go back to those resources, they're able to use them more effectively. So, Suzi, it's been a pleasure having you on here today.
So fun.
Thank you for the conversation. Thank you for the education, motivation, liberation. Thank you for everything you shared. You were just phenomenal. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, Lucas. Appreciate it.
It was a pleasure. To all my guests, to everybody watching today, thank you guys so much. Make sure you check us out tomorrow morning. I'm going to have my wonderful, lovely wife, Miss Corinne Marie Tyndale, 8 a.m. tomorrow morning. Don't miss it. We're going to talk about her new book. We're going to talk about her short film. We're going to talk about how much she loves me. Just things like that. All the important things. You know what I mean? And maybe I'll tell you guys how wonderful, beautiful, special she is to me. Maybe I'll share my love for her. We also may talk about this book we wrote together called The Marriage Plan. Check that out. The Marriage Plan, we wrote that together. That's a task. A husband and a wife writing a book together, that can be challenging, but we did it, ladies and gentlemen, and it's a powerful resource for singles and for couples to make a plan for their future. A plan, creating a vision for forever together is the subtitle. And we want to help couples, individuals, and singles get fit for relationships, mentally, spiritually, emotionally fit for healthy, happy relationships. You all, thank you guys so much for joining us for Lucas Live in the morning. I'm excited to bring you guys more morning shows. I want to give you a chance to watch the replay all day, right? If it's on in the morning, we can get on, we can get energized, educated, motivated, liberated, and then you have all day to watch the replay, to share it, to talk about it at work with your family and friends, to send the link out and say, hey, did you see it this morning? You got to check it out. We want to get your morning started right. So we're going to do morning shows with some evening shows along with it, some evening specials and some special guests. We have Officer Lamar Sharp coming up really soon as well. He's going to be on the show. Shout out to him. And so many others. I can't even begin to name all the wonderful guests that we're going to have on this show coming up soon. Stay tuned. We also will be releasing information on how you can put ads on Lucas Live. You may have a business and you see we're getting a lot of views and you're like, man, if I could get a shout out or get my ad on there, I could grow my business. It's already started for some. And we're going to be putting out the ad packages. When you see that, if you're interested, you're going to have to move fast because I know the ad spots are going to go quickly. But we're going to be excited to share your business and your information to help you grow as we grow. Everybody, remember, we have more to do. And we're going to continue to do it each and every day. You guys, thank you guys for being here this morning. Everybody have a powerful, wonderful, beautiful day.